nui kia koutou kia ora. I rise to take a brief call on the instruction on the Government's Communications Security Bill. Mr Speaker, as members are well aware, but maybe the people watching and trying to learn about our democracy, our Parliament, Mr Speaker, understanding Order 286, when a government minister instructs a bill which must be reported back less than the traditional time from a select committee, it allows the Parliament to debate an unlimited amount of time this instruction. So what we see is this government give this legislation only 2 months. Only 2 months, Mr Speaker, to be reported back to this House. Now remember, this is legislation which only recently was given to the opposition, legislation that had no Bill of Rights vet, legislation which is being introduced in urgency, Mr Speaker, and it's important that the opposition has a say. This is in fact the only protection our country, our democracy has when the government, I believe, abuses the system needlessly for a bill such as this. Mr Speaker, we haven't seen a bill passed with unanimity of this House. We've seen a bill close by the smallest of margins, 61 to 59. We see a bill passed under accusations of bully boy tactics by the New Zealand First Party, Mr Speaker. We see a bill entering this House under urgency with a constrained, shortened select committee period. Select committees are vitally important to our democracy. It's where the real work's done. It's where I wish more people would actually watch and tune in to the work that MPs across all the party lines do, because they see MPs work collaboratively. They see MPs not always butting heads as they do inside this chamber. They see legislation actually improved. You see experts, the public, interested parties get a say, and that's not what we're going to see with this important bill, which deals with issues of security, issues of spying, issues of surveillance, issues of civil liberties and human rights. Mr Speaker, I think the Honourable David Parker quite aptly explained why select committees are so important in our unicameral parliamentary system, where there are so few constraints on executive power. Mr Speaker, we have seen I believe no arguments from the government benches, and in fact no national members, and I see about 8 in the chamber today, no members standing up prepared to take a call to explain why this bill is going to be reduced to only a 2-month period at select committee instead of the traditional period. We've seen some waffly, I think, claims which most New Zealanders don't take particularly seriously of potential nuclear weapons information acquisition through New Zealand. We've seen some claims of cyber attacks, Mr Speaker. Now, the Green Party takes these allegations seriously. We take the security of our country seriously. We do not obviously support or in any way want to be seen to support those who use violence in the name of political goals, such as, obviously, is the definition of terrorism used by the Federal Bureau of Investigation of the States. We take these issues seriously, and that's why we don't think the government has gone about it the right way. Because if the government was concerned about an imminent or urgent threat to our country's security, they would have gone about this bill in an entirely different way. They would have convened a meeting of the parties, Mr Speaker. They would have done it in a much different way, as we have seen in our country's history over the decades and centuries. But instead what we see is politics being played. And as Stephen Browning said, we've got the US Attorney General in the States, representatives of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in New Zealand, representatives of other spying partners, of which New Zealand is one of 5 members, the little finger of the fist, some people call it. Mr Browning, I think quite rightfully, posed the question, are we seeing this bill introduced under urgency today to send a message to the US that New Zealand takes their concerns seriously, that New Zealand will do whatever they can if Washington beckons? We've seen it on .com, we've seen it on even copyright legislation, where the WikiLeaks cables have shown that the US government asked New Zealand to jump and the national government said, how high, Mr Speaker? And this is why it's abhorrent and I believe egregious that legislation containing such important issues with such significant ramifications for our country, for our human rights and civil liberties, is getting such a constrained select committee process. What we know is that 80+ New Zealanders have likely been unlawfully spied upon over 18 months. And I think this is a crucial thing when we put the context of a 2-month report back period. 18 months. we've seen potential unlawful spying on Mr.com and other New Zealanders potentially over a longer time. 18 months we could have sorted out and dealt with this issue, but instead the government wants to, through urgency, through a constrained select committee process, rush the issue. That's not how good legislation's made. That's not good how enduring political consensuses are made, Mr. Speaker, and despite a multiplicity of views in this House, which is only right in a mixed member proportional system. We're not obviously agreeing with the Labour Party on everything, and we obviously don't agree with the National Party on everything, but we should have a more considered, deliberative time to go through and get the stuff right. We should have had an inquiry, and this is why the Green Party's been calling for that, because a constrained 2-month period at Select Committee won't cut the mustard. It's nowhere near an inquiry, but this is the closest thing our country's going to get. So I urge a national member, if they stand behind the decision of the Minister, take a call, defend your arguments, put your arguments so the people of our fine country can hear it. But no, we see members shaking their head. We're not going to see a national member take a call, but I urge you do. I guess, Mr. Speaker, it's not a good day to be a national member, is it? We've got the government, we've got the Prime Minister talking only about Aaron Gilmore.
Order,
we've got the government,
order,
Mr. Speaker.
Order! The member is outside the scope of the debate.
Speaker, I acknowledge the call. Mr. Speaker, I think it's a bad process that we're seeing today. It's not a good day to be a national member. But look, if they're going to take decisions like this to rush bills through urgency, if they're going to make a decision to put it only a 2-month period, stand up, defend it. Put your words on the Hansard if you stand it. I challenge a national MP. Put your words on the record of this House.
Mr. Speaker.
Scott Simpson.
Mr. Speaker, I move the question be now put.
Chris Simpson.
Hipkins, I believe, is the word that you're looking for there, Mr. Speaker.
I do apologise.
But I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm mortally wounded. But look, Mr. Speaker, there are 2 procedural aspects to this debate. The first is, which are kind of new for the House.